What's doing, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. If you've never been here before, hit the subscribe button. And for those of you that have never visited, I served 17 years in the New York prison system straight, and 3 years in the beginning was served on Rikers Island. And I'm going to give you another Rikers Island story today. Many of you that have viewed me in the past and have checked out my videos know the way that I am today, see the way that I carry and conduct myself, listen to the way I speak today, but I wasn't always like this. There was a time when I was a very lost, delinquent, out of control, crazy kid on Rikers Island before I learned what I learned today. And we're going to talk about one of those times. Um, Rikers Island was insanity. Rikers Island was chaos. Rikers Island was the cement jungle. And I'm going to tell you a story about the first time that I ever tried the drug heroin on Rikers Island. I had never seen heroin before. The neighborhood that I came from, it wasn't a prevalent drug. No one really did that drug. And if they did it behind the scenes in real quiet. It wasn't something, as I said, that was prevalent. So I had never seen it before. And when I got to Rikers Island, this was basically the drug of choice for many people in the prison system. There were a lot of guys sniffing heroin, and a lot of guys that were incarcerated because they were high on heroin, because they possessed the drug heroin, because they stole something to get the drug heroin, whatever it may be. It was just a real prevalent drug on Rikers Island and in the prison system as well. And so at this time, I'm still a crazy, out of control kid. When I got to Rikers Island, I was 24 years old. I was still using drugs. I had unfortunately just took someone's life while I was under the influence of drugs. And here I am sitting on Rikers Island. I'm in a building called C95 at the time. I'm in a dormitory type setting. There's about 60, 65 guys in this dorm. And one of the dealers in there was a guy that we called Itchy. And we called him Itchy because the drug heroin makes people itch a lot. You see them, they're scratching, they're itching like this. They're high on heroin, they're nodding out. And Itchy was the man in the dorm. He was the man in this area of the prison. He used to get all the dope. That's what we referred to heroin as in prison. We called it dope. And so I make this. A rational decision that I want to try this drug for the first time. And I had been on Rikers Island a while. I said, let me see what this does to you. Of course, an ignorant decision, a stupid decision, a naive decision. But I'm 24 years old on Rikers Island. I'm a drug addict. I'm under the influence of other drugs, and I think I'm going to die in prison anyway. I haven't been sentenced yet, so I believe I'm going to end up with 25 to life. And of course, I'm hurt, I'm scared, I'm confused, and I want something to make me feel a little better. It's not the right answer, but at the time, you couldn't tell me that. You couldn't talk to me. And so I speak to my buddy Lee about it. I've done a few videos with my man Big Lee, and I told him, yo, listen, I want to try this stuff. So I go up to Itchy, and I said, Itchy, listen, how much for a one-on-one? And what a one-on-one is in prison, a $10 jail bag on the street, a $10 bag of heroin on the street goes for about $30 or $40 inside a prison. And they call it they make what's called a one-on-one, which is just a little sniff in each nostril, a little. That's it. And that usually costs about 4 packs of cigarettes. They sell that for about 4 packs of Newports. So I go to Itchy and I tell him, listen, let me get a one-on-one. I want to get a one-on-one. I said, when I go to commissary, I'll give you the 4 packs of cigarettes. He says, no problem. He gives it to me. I go to my buddy. How do I do this? Because I've never done it before. He says, just sniff the whole thing. I said, how long is it going to take me to feel it? He said, you should feel it within 2 minutes. Right away, you should start feeling it. And so I do this little one-on-one, and I'm sitting on my bed. I don't feel much at all. I'm waiting 5, 10 minutes. I tell my buddy, I don't really feel anything. What am I supposed to feel? He said, no, you should feel relaxed. Like, you're ready to nod out. You should, feel like you're in real smooth. I said, I don't feel anything. Maybe it was maybe I have a high tolerance. Maybe it was weak. Maybe I should get another one. I'm gonna go get another one. So I go back to Itchy. And I tell Itchy, listen, Itchy's a bald-headed black guy in the dorm. So I say to Itchy, I say, yo, let me get another one. When I go to commissary, I'll give you a total of 8 packs of cigarettes, whatever it was. He says, no problem. He gives me another one. I go back to my bed. I do that, and as soon as I do it, I feel it. And I said, wow. I says, I feel good. I feel real nice, and it just smoothed me out, mellowed me out. And let me say before I go any further with this, do not do this drug, right? Just because I'm saying I felt good under it, just because I'm saying that it relaxed me, just because I'm saying that it made me feel better, that's just the very quick side effect for what can turn to be a disaster and destroy your entire life. Okay, and so I'll get back to that more. So I do it and I feel the high. And so after about 20 minutes of enjoying this high, I turn around to my buddy Lee and I said, "Listen, I'm gonna rob Itchy." So he says, "What?" I says, "I'm gonna take Itchy's shit. I'm taking it all." I says, "He had a big bag of it." I says, "And I'm taking it from him." So my boy, yo, you're crazy, da da da, this, that. And I was a little out of control. I said, "Listen, but my buddy's in it with me too." I said, "This is what I want you to do." I says, "I want you to go ask Itchy and tell him you want to buy a bag. And I'm going to keep my eye on him as you're doing the deal with him. I want to see where he puts it after he gives it to you. You know what I mean? I want to see where his stash is so I can go take his stash." And my buddy's with the plan. He goes to see Itchy. He tells Itchy he wants a bag. Itchy gives him the bag. And then afterwards, I watch Itchy tie it up and put it down inside of his underwear. I'm watching him from across the dormitory, and I see him put it inside of his underwear. I says, "All right, here's my plan. Here's the plan." I says, "Lee, I want you to go up behind Itchy and I want you to put him in the sleeper hold. I want you to put him in a chokehold." I says, "And put him out." I says, "Don't kill him. Just put him out. Put him to sleep." I said, "When you put him to sleep, I'm going right in his pants and I'm grabbing that stuff." And so Lee comes up behind him. Lee walks up behind him as he's sitting on his bed, throws him in the chokehold. As he's in the chokehold, the whole dorm is watching, the whole dormitory. But the whole dorm is scared of me already. I've been in this dorm for 6, 7 months and I've been wrecking everyone. That's a problem. Anyone that tries to bully anyone, I demolish them. Anyone that's picking on anyone, right? But I'm out of control too. What can I tell you? I'm out of control at the time. And so I go in, I reach right down Itchy's pants, and I find the balloon in his pants, and I pull it out, and I immediately go into the bathroom, and I put it in a glove. I put it in a glove and tie it up in a plastic glove, and then I put a little grease on it, and boom, I hide it right up in the keister. It goes right up in there. And I have about 4 or 5 grams of heroin, which is worth a lot of money in prison. And so by this time, Itchy is coming too because he released him. He only held him for me to go down his pants and take out the dope, and then he let him go. And when he wakes up, he realizes that his stuff is gone. And this is a crazy part of the story. He goes to the officer. Itchy goes to the officer and he's like, "Yo, these guys just stole my dope." And the officer's like, "What?" He was like, I had my drugs and these guys stole my drugs." I'm like, "Yo, what is this guy doing? Is he out of his mind?" And the officer calls a bunch of other officers and sergeants, and they all come into the dorm, and he points the finger right at me. He's like, "That guy stole my drugs." And so I said, "I don't know what he's talking about. I have no clue what he's talking about. This guy's out of his mind. I didn't take anything from anyone. He's telling you I stole his drugs, right?" So they take all my personal property. They go to my bed. They take all my personal property out of my locker. They put me in a pair of handcuffs. They march me to a bullpen, which is a big empty cell with my mattress and my property, and they run everything through an x-ray machine. And they search all my stuff. They're searching everything for this dope, right? But they can't find it. The dope is up inside of me. These days, they'd probably be able to find it because they have a lot of scanning machines that scan the body, like in the airport. But back in my day, they didn't have any of that. They hit me with the X-ray wand, right? There's no metal, no nothing. They search my body, they strip me, they search all my clothes, they go through my property with a fine-tooth comb. They run my mattress through an X-ray machine. They run all my property through an X-ray machine. They can't find anything, right? They can't find it. So now I'm sitting in this bullpen, and I'm waiting to see a sergeant, right? The sergeant is going to interview me about this whole ordeal. And I'm high on heroin for the first time as I'm going through all of this, and I'm sitting in this cold bullpen, waiting for the sergeant. And I'm in there for like an hour or two. And I says, I want to do a little more of this stuff while I'm waiting. I'm sitting in this bullpen. I might as well do a little more. What I don't know at the time is that heroin is not like cocaine. When you sniff cocaine, you could do a little, then do a little more, then do a little more, and your high keeps going up. But with heroin, you're not supposed to do it like that. You do it, and then you wait, a couple hours and really relax. But I don't notice. I want to do a little more. I want to get higher as I'm going through this because I'm a crazy, reckless kid. So as I'm in the bullpen, I take it out and I do a little more and then tie it up, put it back in the keister. And as I'm sitting there, really out of my mind, you know what I mean? As they say, comfortably numb, um, they come in to get me, to bring me into the sergeant's office. And as I'm in the sergeant's office, I'm nodding out in front of the sergeant. He definitely knows that I'm high because I'm in front of him like this. I didn't take anything. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm almost drooling. I'm so high. And they didn't find anything on me, so there's not much they can really do. But the officer, the sergeant sees that I'm twisted. So at this point, they have to decide where they're going to put me. They can't put me in solitary confinement really because they didn't catch me doing anything, and they didn't catch me with anything. And so I'm in an MO dorm too. And what an MO dorm means is it's a mental observation dorm. And there's not many of them on Rikers Island because I'm under a mental observation from the judge. So they have to put me back in that dorm, right? Which means they got to move Itchy, right? So, and that's what they do. They take Itchy, they move him to another part of the jail. They put me back in the dorm. When they put me back in the dorm, I take the heroin out and I pour it on the table for everyone in the dorm, everyone that wants to get high. There you go, everybody enjoy. And so the guys, they already know I'm out of my mind. And couple days go past, however long goes past, and the message comes. Someone says to me, "Yo, Itchy says that when he sees you, he's gonna rip your face open with a scalpel." All right, so whatever he wants to do. This is how reckless I was. And whatever he wants to do. But that weekend, I have a visit. Someone comes to visit me, and when you go to the visit, you have to sign a logbook. You go in there, you take off your clothes. They give you a gray jumpsuit to put on with the Velcro, and you put a pair of slippers on your feet, and that's how you go to the visit in Rikers Island. You can't wear your personal clothes to the visit. You wear the gray jumpsuit with your underwear on underneath and a pair of slippers. And so when I go to sign into the logbook, I see Itchy's real name in the logbook, and which means he's on the visit as well. I know I'm going to see him when I get into the visit room. And so what I do is I put my gray jumpsuit on, but I leave my sneakers on. Hope they don't notice because this way I have my sneakers on when I get into a fight. And I walk into the visit room and I see Itchy sitting at the table, waiting for his visit. And I walk right up to him as he's sitting down. I walk right up against him and I look down at him. I said, "So you sent a message? You're gonna cut me with a razor when you see me?" Boom! Right? I catch him with a left hook, crack his face open, knock him out of the chair. I get on top of him, start tearing him up. Bang, 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 bang. Really bad. Until all the officers come running over. Takes them, 10, 15 seconds to run over. I already got in 30 shots, broke his nose, cracked his head, smashed it. I mean, I demolished him in 30 seconds. And that was a wrap. They take me and they bring me back to the MO dorm. Because at that time, check this out, people that were in the mental observation dorm couldn't be placed in solitary confinement either. because I was under mental observation and they didn't put us in solitary confinement. So I go back to the dorm again. I'm back in the dorm again. And that was my first time trying that drug. Yes, I was wrong. You don't have to tell me in the comments how wrong I was. Of course, I was wrong for doing everything I did. I was a menace to society. That was one of 1,000 stories I could tell you about Rikers Island. And most guys, I have to tell you, like me on Rikers Island, a white guy from Long Island was a little more timid. I wasn't timid. That wasn't me. I was a beast. I was a pit bull on Rikers Island. They used to just point the finger at me and say, "Yo, see that white guy over there? Stay far away from him as much as you could." You know. But the guys also loved me. A lot of the guys loved me. You know what I mean? I got along good with everyone. That was just one of the reckless. I didn't like Itchy anyway. That's why I picked Itchy. So you just say I didn't just do that to anyone. I should have made that a point of the story. Is that I didn't just run around beating up people that didn't do anything. I never liked Itchy. I was in the dorm with him for a few months. He had a real arrogant attitude. He was real nasty. He thought he was king shit because he was the heroin dealer, and he used to, take advantage of all the guys that were high. He would take everything from them, take their money from them, take their food from them, take their commissary from, and he walked around like he was the head honcho. You know what I mean? And so I says, you know what? He needed a beating anyway. I didn't even like the guy, and he caused so much chaos in the dorm with his drug dealing. I says, I'm getting rid of this guy. I'm taking his shit and getting rid of him. But that drug was thankfully not a drug that I fell in love with, because I didn't fall in love with it. I have done it a few times after that. When I got up to state prison, I did it on Rikers Island a little more. When I got up to state prison, I did it quite a few times. I probably did it about 20 times in my life when I was up in prison. And but I didn't really love it. I didn't really like the drug. It was something to just numb me from the pain that I was going through, something to take me away from my reality, which I understand drugs is not the answer. I always tell people that drugs aren't the problem. Is a person has a problem and he turns to drugs. That the problem is inside of you. The problem is something that you may be going through, something that you feel about yourself. Just there's turmoil and chaos in your own life, or you're depressed, and then you turn to drugs. You see, drugs aren't the problem. The problem is inside of the person, and if you can fix the person, then he won't need to turn to the drugs. And it took a lot to fix me before I got drug free. It took a lot to fix me because I was a hurting, lost soul. And so yes, I ended up never touched that drug again. I stopped while I was in prison. In the beginning of my prison sentence, I was like, enough is enough of this. You know what I mean? And I never did it again. And I've watched guys struggle with it while I was in prison. There were guys that just couldn't beat the addiction no matter what. They lived their lives to get high. They lived their lives to do dope. And they were taking money from their wives, from their parents. Please send me money, and they were using all the money to just to get that heroin inside of the prison. And I've watched it kill a lot of guys. I've watched it destroy a lot of guys. I've watched it destroy the families. And so even stay drug free, my friends. Stay drug free. That's all I can beg of you. But I figured I'd give you one of the little crazy stories about when I was out of control on Rikers Island. I'll see you guys later. Take care.